Hello everyone and welcome back to the Dorito Tunnel of Love. Welcome back to Let's Play Shin Megami Tensei. For whatever reason, I've tried recording this episode maybe 3 times now, and OBS has constantly crashed on me, so I guess this one's just cursed. Gonna fight a Messiah scanner here. So as we make our way into the final section of this game, I do want to just give fair warning. I may skip some encounters that normally I would have shown off. Just truth be told, towards the end of the game here, there's a lot of new enemies, and a lot of encounters honestly just go the same, so I'll try showing off new enemies just because I like to show off every type of encounter at least once if I can, but truth be told, a lot of the time it just ends up being, attacking them with, magic bullets so that they become charmed, and then, having Kazuya finish them off with, Hino Kagetsuchi, so nothing too exciting, just, very repetitive, so I'm probably gonna cut out a little bit more than I normally would in different parts of this game. So speaking with Yuji here, very clear he's pretty invested in that whole law thing by this point. Purification of the earth does not sound like a good thing. Generally, unless something's like water, I don't really like the term purification being used. It's a highly subjective term. Good to see what Takashi's up to. I really like the idea that Yuji and Takashi at this point in the game are just bickering from these two little opposite sides of this weird-ass little indented hallway. And they're just constantly yelling stupid shit back and forth at each other, and they have been this entire time. Fair word of warning. So, this is the end game. So triggering either of those two conversations, actually the conversation plays out slightly different depending on who you speak with first. But yeah, going back and speaking with either of your companions at this point after defeating the 4 Guardians of Tokyo is going to lock you out of the, regular world map that we have seen up until this point. So if there's any optional stuff that I've shown off in this game that you're interested in doing and you have not yet done, go ahead and just do it now before you go back and talk with either of those two, because if you didn't, then you missed out on it and you're unfortunately locked out, which is kind of a shame, but oh well. Nothing, honestly, if you miss something, it's not the end of the world. There's some cool stuff you can do that's optional, but nothing super mandatory. I mean, it is optional after all, and I'd say you still got the overall SMT experience if you miss out on 1 or 2 side quests here, so. But I'm sure there's a lot of people like me who are major completionists in terms of RPG playthroughs, and would be mad if they could not experience everything in one go. And I totally understand that, but yeah. Alright, so we're gonna enter the first floor of the cathedral here, and there's actually 2 separate little communities here that you can go into. There's a Messiah community and a Gaian community. These are both little miniature towns within the first floor of the dungeon that you can stop and heal at and stuff like that. So we're now outside, and, well, after this random encounter that you probably already saw, the world map has been covered with water, which is actually, I think, a really cool little set-piece decision. I mean, you already have the world post-time skip that's already destroyed, and then just to go back again and have that go through a biblical flooding, I think is really neat to have at the climax of this game. But in terms of things to have at the climax of this game, one thing that I guess I never really thought about, but I tweeted about this. I think this is kind of weird. Having this little subplot, or I guess it's not even really a subplot, but this cutscene where we're gonna go out and save this octopus from being sacrificed here is kind of a weird thing to throw in right after you learn that 99% of humanity is probably dead because of God flooding the earth, but I don't know, maybe that's just like my opinion, man, but kinda killed the mood of it, but I don't know. I guess SMT, 1, just this game in particular, has always had the occasional funny moment thrown in here for a good laugh, but yeah, throwing in this octopus at this point in the game is just kind of strange. So there's actually, in the guy in town, there is a turtle that's going through a similar situation where he's about to be eaten or something, and you can go ahead and rescue him. If you're on the neutral route, you can choose to save either or. If you're on the law route, you're going to save this octopus here, I believe, and then if you're in the chaos route, you're going to save that turtle. So these animals effectively act as your ship in like a Final Fantasy. They effectively just let you traverse the oceans like you would you were just walking. So yeah, just gonna continue exploring around town here. This guy's warning us that there's some demons running about. So, one thing in general is that, the Messiah community is pretty much, safe. There's no demons within the perimeter. There are parts of the guy in town that have random encounters and some demons, have snuck through. And also, there's just a few places in general where, you can get into fights with, random Gaian human enemies, so those are still around at this point in the game. And of course we can access terminals on both the law and chaos side of the cathedral here. Thought I'd go ahead and save. And as you can see, we have a healer and a Messiah church back to back. I believe both of the different two sides of the cathedral have the neutral healer option available for you, which is nice. I mean, at this point in the game, alignment stuff is kind of weird at this point in the game, because this fan translation patch is weird and tends to break and sometimes shifts alignment. I do believe, though, that technically from a game design standpoint, I don't think the developers intended to have you shift alignment at this point in the game. I think you're technically supposed to be locked. But that's a bit strange, and I'm gonna discuss why in a bit. Anyways, we're gonna say hello to our octopus friend again. But yeah, I don't really know what the purpose is of giving you that neutral healer, because I think at this point you should just be law, chaos, or neutral, and I don't think you're really supposed to shift. That being said, like I kind of stated, the fan translation patch does tend to break, in which case I'm gonna put some Game Shark or like action replay codes in the description of this video and the future ones. Just because if the game does break and your alignment gets shifted, it's very well possible that you're just stuck in the final dungeon and you cannot progress, which is really shitty, especially after you got all the way into this game. So, in my opinion, and I've had to do it on a couple playthroughs, I don't think there's any shame in cheating at that point just because the fan translation kind of sucked. So, you might as well just do the action replay thing and get your alignment back in order as it was intended to be. So anyways, we used our newfound octopus friend to go ahead and just check out the guy inside of this first floor. And I actually, I really find this NPC interesting just because he kind of hints at something that I feel a lot with this game, and is kind of, I think, an element of a lot of the law factions that were lost in time, and also to some extent I don't even think really got fleshed out very much in this game, even though I guess you could say there's a lot of things in this game's story that are kind of minimalist and not really fleshed out or expanded upon. But yeah, the Gaians kind of imply that they really didn't have too much difficulty breaking into the cathedral and taking over the bottom half. And it sounds to me like a lot of the Messiahs building this cathedral were honestly just not equipped with weaponry, even for self-defense purposes. And I find that really interesting because also throughout the game, you have a lot of hints here and there with different Messian communities and different Messian people who don't seem to really, like, you know, be that bad. They seem to honestly just have these different shelters and spaces for people to exist in, and just kind of huddle together and be safe within, and, you know, kind of tending to people despite the whole law versus chaos thing going on. And I think that is, I think especially really interesting from a law perspective, just because I think that's kind of how a lot of real religion works, at least in Western cultures, where you do have people that are drawn to them because of that charitable and, you know, kindness and different morality perspective that those religions provide, but then also to end up getting dragged within those rather unfortunate systematic and, I guess, more insidious problems that kind of lie within the cultures that develop around those religions and sometimes even those actions of charity. And I think that's something in this game that is kind of hinted at that they never really do anything with. I'm not even sure if it was entirely intended to be like that, but I think it'd be really cool if they explored that more with different law factions in the series. That being said, that's an element of religion that I think is kind of hard to form a story around, not only just because it's kind of a very specific and complex issue in modern society, but also just the controversy around discussing something like that, and, you know, systematic and various problems of that sort generally. a lot of negative kickback from discussing stuff like that, so don't blame anyone for not wanting to write a story around that. But yeah, I rambled on enough about that. Just something that one NPC kind of kicked off in me, I guess. So yeah, still exploring the Gaian part of the town here, or Gaian part of the first floor rather, Gaian town. So this is the section I was discussing where you can just kind of get invaded by different enemies and stuff, and I mean, we even recruited that one Gaian just earlier, so gonna save here as well. Might as well. It's worth visiting these terminals, if only because you can always use them to teleport back in between if you're out and about and you need to use Troport. Still don't know why that spell isn't just called Teleport. It's so stupid to have a spell name that's all funky and just slightly different. Like, Mapper I understand because Mapper, like, makes sense, but Troport's just stupid. Yeah, not fun. So actually, one thing I guess, just I really like how this game doubles down on the apocalypse. I kind of discussed how I like the secondary change we have here to the world map occurring this late into the game, but man, the fucking balls for a game on the SNES to kill off effectively 99% of humanity, I think is great. I mean, I guess you have stuff like Chrono Trigger, but I mean, even then, that's kind of more lighthearted, and that's kind of avoided at the end, and I mean, I'm sorry, but unless you're... Well, first of all, I guess I should say, we don't even know if anyone outside of Japan really is even alive or survived the demonic invasion, and I kind of want to say probably not. I don't know how far that demon summoning app Steven created probably even extended, if that makes sense. Maybe the American military survived a bit, you know, to some extent, because they were definitely being helped out by the angels and whatnot, but I find it kind of, I don't know, I find it kind of hard to believe that a lot of people are gonna survive this flood that just occurred unless they live on top of a mountain, or, as we're about to see, tall skyscraper buildings and stuff like that are safe. But yeah, most people probably just fucking died right now, which is, like I said, the balls to do that in a 16-bit JRPG. Just part of the reason I love this game so much. They aren't afraid to do just random shit like that you really didn't see back in the day, to some extent. So once again, gonna get on our octopus friend, and we're gonna go check out the situation occurring with Ravana and Vishnu. I really hate how the, and remember this tower, by the way, we're not gonna go here yet, but I just wanted to pop in here to show that you could. But yeah, I really hate how the sprite for sailing in this game is just your regular sprite, but upside down. I think that's super goofy. And as I was talking about before, reused sprite. If you recall, we've seen that sprite a few times already. But yeah, look at that. It looks like the overworld guy's breakdancing. It's so dumb. Don't know why I was heading east there. I think I may have wanted to check out that island, but decided against it. We're gonna go all the way west here. Went over Yoyogi Park, actually. All in good fun. Where we started the game at. Good times, good times. A lot simpler then. Alright, so this is the second to last dungeon of the game. And this dungeon's kind of annoying just because the encounter rate, I think, is actually the highest of any area in the game. The actual final dungeon may be just as bad, I can't quite remember. The final dungeon's layout and general traversal is a hell of a lot more disgusting than this, but I think actually this may be the highest encounter rate of any area in the game, bar none, so yeah, that'll be fun. There was a lot of editing that went into this episode, trust me. I actually did cut out a little bit of the dungeon itself just because there is, honest to God, some areas of this dungeon that only exist for you to get lost in, and they're kind of like a labyrinthian design in nature where you just kind of walk around, end up getting stuck in a few random encounters, and then you're just forced to wander until you find the right way to go. Which honestly, I'm not a fan of when first-person dungeon crawlers do that. Kind of actually, I guess one reason I've always kind of preferred the PS2 Megaten games, and I think why a lot of other people do, is sometimes first-person dungeon crawling Megaten game dungeon design isn't the most fun thing in the world. A lot of times I actually feel like it's just more annoying than actually fairly challenging, especially in the case of the older games. Strange Journey's better with it, but I do think the dungeon design in Strange Journey is more often than not just kind of boring and not fun rather than actually, engaging and challenging. Yeah, Strange Journey is just a game that I feel could be like half as long as it actually is and still be just as good, if not better. I really do not like the dungeon design in that game. But Persona Q actually, and I guess Etrian Odyssey in general, I think really great from what I've played of those games, dungeon design and layouts, where it's a very nice mix of getting lost and sometimes getting really stressed out because of that, but also a really nice sense of progression that a lot of, I think, dungeon crawlers really struggle to give the player, where even when you're lost and you're kind of not sure where to go, you still feel like you are progressing, and I think to some extent the fact that you have to draw the maps actually helps out with that and kind of creates a little bit of an illusion there, but really fun stuff. But that's not here or there. Back to this game. Actually, I guess one thing I can talk about in general while we have the time, because not too much to show off with regards to this dungeon, it's just kinda a matter of finding the staircases leading up. I think now that I've played through this game and recorded it, and I've actually had to sit down and just watch everything that I've done without actually playing the game and getting into that zen-like state of just kind of playing without thinking. One thing I did notice while just editing all this footage is SMT1 is a game, and I don't even want to say this coming from the perspective of me breaking the game and doing all this overpowered shit. I think even if you play this game as the developers intended, and if you played this game with just like, if you played this game properly and you didn't suck, but you weren't going overboard with your party and, min-maxing and stuff like I am either. If you're just playing this game correctly, let's say, or on average, you actually progress quite a bit more in this game than I think people give it credit for, and by that I mean there's actually very little backtracking to go to healers and, buy new equipment or buy new items and stuff like that I think in general, people may not realize. Like, you actually don't need to go back for stuff all too often towards the second half of this game. But what I think is really interesting is, despite all that, and even though you're almost always making constant progress, this game feels honestly rather tedious, and there's a lot of things that I think really build on top of that. One is, I think the dungeon design is more often than not kind of that labyrinthian thing I was talking about, where you just honestly feel more so like you're getting lost, and the developers kind of expect you to just struggle against random encounter upon random encounter over and over again until your resources dwindle, and that's kind of where the challenge comes from, which can admittedly get kind of taxing for probably most people. Other than that, though, like, there's just little shit like, I feel like getting new equipment in this game, and I don't know, I guess I was just thinking of this watching me, go through and pick up treasure chests in this dungeon and stuff. Getting equipment in this game, I feel like more often than not, is just kind of more of a hassle than it's worth because of the inventory cap that this game has. I guess by the time you're like 1/4 of the way through this game, you probably are starting to already experience difficulties managing your inventory and just having too much shit to carry, which really sucks because in a lot of ways, a lot of the healing items you get are just life stones or basic medicine, which really don't heal all that much, and you just have an abundance of them, and they're still really good to have around, especially life stones for stuff like negotiation. But then you get stuff like Molotov cocktails, or just random shit equipment from random encounters, and hand grenades, and different offense-oriented attack items. And honestly, attack items in this game are just the most worthless thing. They're barely even worth selling because they're so cheap, and they're not worth using in battle because you might as well just guard. They're a waste of a turn. They barely do any damage. They're just junk items that fill up your inventory, and there's a lot of stuff like that in this game that's just a pain in the ass, because by the time you actually want to go get a new gun or a new sword or whatever, even new armor that's available, more often than not, you're gonna spend like at least a couple minutes just going through your inventory and clearing it out so you can get that actual new stuff. And I just think there's stuff like that, and it's a lot of little stuff like that just really builds up to really hinder that sense of progress you get in this game, that I think Mega 10 really started to fix and kind of, I guess, expand upon in later entries, where part of the reason I think later Mega 10 games are as popular as they are is because that beautiful sense of progression you get in terms of powering up and going through the different areas of that game and surmounting challenges. But anyways, enough of that and that long-ass game design ramble I went on. This is Ravana. He is the Chaos faction leader in this little dungeon that we're gonna fight here. So actually, that's one thing I do want to talk about. General strategy for this guy is the same as all the other bosses we've been fighting, so fuck it, not even gonna talk about that. This game sets up this Ravana Vishnu dungeon as if it was like another big choice, kind of like Goto and Thor, or even more recently Echidna and Haniel, but it's really not, and I don't actually think at this point in the game, I've experimented upon many save files, including this one, I don't think at this point in the game you can affect your alignment anymore, so I'm not sure why they present it like that. It's just always really weirded me out, because it seems like both of your former companions really want you to, like, decide to do the thing that they offer. I feel like they want you to work for them still at this point, and this is kind of the last hope of you choosing their faction. But every time I experiment with this, I honestly just get the result where I'm just locked into the neutral path still. So I don't really get the point of that. It's really fucking weird. And maybe it's again another thing with the fan translation acting up. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah. So we killed Ravana, and now we're gonna fight his son Indrajit. I think this is a little neat touch to just randomly have a boss fight of a relative that got pissed off right away after you killed him. I don't think we've seen anything really like that so far in this game, which is pretty neat. Usually we just get a bunch of different, you know, miniature tough enemies before the real boss, kind of like the Goto fight where he had a bunch of stuff that he summoned beforehand, then we fought Goto proper. But yeah, this is just straight up 2 boss fights back to back, which is pretty neat. I mean, they're both not very scary, and they're pretty weak, but it's a cool idea, I guess, so. And we leveled up, which is always nice. I can't tell, did we get to max HP with Kazuya? 989, alright, 10 HP away, and we are going to be max level with Kaz, which is cool. So yeah, we're gonna end up walking all the way back down and heading all the way over to the secondary tower so that we can go ahead and fight Vishnu. I didn't actually choose which tower to go into with any specific order in mind. I just kinda went ahead and chose one. So they're honestly both about the same. I actually think this side of the dungeon is a little easier to go through. Maybe it's just because I was used to it at this point on my replay through now, but it seems like it's just slightly less confusing of a layout and just easier to find the staircase, or maybe I just lucked upon it, who knows, so. But yeah, it seemed to overall go faster. But yeah, I think, I just going back to it, and I guess I'm starting to sound like I'm reviewing the game at this point, but hey, we're nearing the end of the LP, so I feel more confident talking about these things now that we've all seen a lot of it together. I think this game really has a lot of those really cool core elements that people know and love about the modern Mega 10 games, just stuck under a lot of different rough elements that just were not executed upon well. But I love the ideas that this game presents, and a lot of it can be found in games like Nocturne or SMT4 and later stuff, but there is a lot of stuff in here that I think is Atlus trying to figure out the identity of this game series they wanted to make, and you know, there's a lot of weird stuff that you kinda don't get anymore. And I think one thing I really do like about this game is I feel like this tells, in a way, kind of the whole cohesive apocalypse story that they ever have, where every other Mega 10 mainline game after this, you get either you generally have like a focus on right after the apocalypse, or, you know, a society that has been created right after the apocalypse, after, a society that's post-apocalyptic and it's been like that and everyone's used to it. And then I guess Nocturne, you get a little bit of the pre-apocalyptic stuff with modern Tokyo, and then it just throws you right into the Vortex world. I really like the escalation in this game from starting out and the demonic invasion is just starting and it's in the early phases, to that escalation to the nuclear fallout, and then the post-apocalyptic stuff, and then just this very, Book of Revelations-esque final confrontation going on here. And I actually really do, it's kind of cheesy admittedly, but I do like the whole Gaian sneaking into the bottom half of the cathedral and kind of being a pseudo sort of like underworld thing, and the Messians are all on the upper half and kind of, you know, the part that reaches towards the heavens and all that. That it's a really cheesy and corny visual metaphor, but I think it works for a really nice poetic way to end the game here with a lot of the Abrahamic theming and stuff going on at this point. Which I guess I mean, it's not all Abrahamic. Like right now we're fighting some Hindu deities, which I guess that's actually something I always like about the Mega 10 games is, in general, how they, even though, like, God and the angels and, Lucifer are always kind of the big two, major leaders of the Law and Chaos factions, all the different other deities have, you know, from other religions and pantheons and whatnot, have different reasons for, siding with Law and Chaos, and I always find it interesting, you know, seeing who ends up where for what reasons, even though, like, in this game, they don't really give much of a reason why, for example, Vishnu is Law or Ravana is Chaos, but, I mean, in later games, they kind of flesh upon why different deities would be drawn to different factions, and I think that's a nice little touch, you know, just not focusing on just, you know, the Abrahamic stuff. Because I think that'd be a trap that'd be really easy to fall into, but even early on into the series, they have, you know, different influences from different religions and folklore and myths and stuff, which is pretty cool to see the mixture going on this early. Alright, time to go ahead and kick Vishnu's ass. Really like that sprite. I don't know if actually we've seen... Yeah, I think that's an original sprite. I don't know. I feel like I've seen this sprite earlier in the game, but I could be wrong. So yeah, this guy ain't too bad either. Unfortunately, Yuka did die earlier in the dungeon while I was rambling like I do. Yeah, so you really want to keep Yuka alive just because, friendly reminder, if both of your human party members die at this point in the game, it's game over. But, that being said, if Yuka dies, it's not the end of the world. By this point in the game, you probably have demons that can do pretty much everything you'd ever need her for, from like stun locking to status ailment stuff to just general healing and support like that. And even then, if you really need it, you can always pop a few different healing items and stuff like that that you need. So it's nice to have her around, but if she dies, you don't need to feel pressured to just completely lose progress on your dungeon and just go all the way back to heal. You should be fine. That being said, always nice to carry around some, you know, revival items, but for whatever reason I don't have any on my person at this point in the game, so that's going to be it for this episode, guys. Join me for the final dungeon on the next episode. Bye.